The controller told us that these objects have been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space.
Is there a correlation between any of the characteristics of these UAPs, UFOs?
What we tend to see are the smaller vehicles tend to be, think of a sports car. The large ones tend to be, not always, but almost exclusively either triangular shape or boomerang shape.
Werewolves? I see dead people walking around like weird people. They don't see each other. They only see what they want to see. They don't know they're dead.
The UFO, UAP community was fairly surprised. Shocked might be a better word.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came to some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human.
Do you think there is life on other planets?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but I suppose there would be.
Oh, I've seen a flying saucer.
You've seen one?
Yes, definitely. At Lane Cove.
When was it?
1953.
You don't think this is a figment of your imagination?
Several other people with me saw it.
Power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
There is now a new UFO whistleblower with some major bombshell-level statements.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This episode is brought to you by some amazing people. Patrick O'Leary, Marcel Gouffonian Metalhead, Nutslap, Tabin Rice. Welcome to the show. Living Life Consciously with Hello Allie, Gemini Moon, Space Baby, Mythoclast, Ray B, Gene G-Force Star, Moody Mongol, Lisa B, Fur 3 Norm, Grey Wolf, and Joanne, Shelley Montgomery, Aaron's Energy 313, Multifaceted Jules, Eric Booth, The Diz Loki, Nathan from the Quantum Show, Gary T, T-Bone, Richard and Fern Harrison, Eddie Tab, Mecca Mickey, Diane Boss, and Jeanette Angel. And a special thank you to all of our subscribers on YouTube, Spotify, and now on Rumble. If you wish to support the podcast, you can hit that join button below to become an Eyes to That Sky member. Or if you want to join the Patreon or to provide other support, the links are below in the show description. But now, on with the show. Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, where we explore the unexplained and mysterious phenomena that have occurred throughout the state of Michigan and beyond.
From UFO sightings to ghostly encounters, we delve deep into the stories, the evidence, and the theories behind these strange events.
We are your hosts. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Wayne.
We are an educator duo that after an encounter with a triangular UFO in 2018 in Michigan, we decided to investigate UFOs and the paranormal. In this podcast, we will be speaking with eyewitnesses, experts, and researchers to uncover the truth about some of the most intriguing cases of paranormal activity in and around Michigan.
Our goal is not to convince anyone of the existence of these phenomena, but rather to provide a platform for discussion and exploration. So, buckle up and join us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole.
On an escalator. Hey.
And we're muted. There we go. Hey, everybody. How is it going tonight? It is Sunday, April 6, 2025, and we're coming to you from deep inside our bunker, tucked in the shadow of the great Motor City, Detroit, Michigan, on a clear, cold, yet something stirs in the shadows kind of a night. Thank you for joining us for this chilling episode of the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast tonight. We welcome Lynn Monet, author of Omnipresent and a former nurse with over 20 years of experience in end-of-life care. She's here to share her harrowing personal experience inside a haunted house and the powerful connection between the spirit world and the living. We're also going to see if there's something with UFOs in there too. I think there probably is some kind of a spiritual connection, but we'll see. So settle in, dim those lights, and prepare to hear a story that might just follow you into your dreams. Michelle's already worried.
I've already said I'm probably staying up tonight.
But first, as always, let's take care of a few quick announcements. Michelle.
Yeah, remember, if you have a story that you would like to share with us, you can email us at mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and also if you're somebody who is into the paranormal, has had some experiences, maybe written a book or two, or would like to have an appearance on the show, you can also email us at that same address as well, and we'll get back with you. But also, if you would like to support the podcast, you can do so with PayPal, Super Chats, buy us a coffee, check out our merchandise store, or join the Patreon. All those links can be found below in the show description. If you decide to become a YouTube member or a Patreon member, you will get a shout out during the intro, as you just saw, and be listed in the credits at the end of the show as a special thank you for your support. Michelle?
Next week?
No.
What? Oh my gosh.
You forgot the main
main
call
I
to
forgot
action.
what some people are supposed to do. Smash that like button.
Yes.
So don't just click it. Don't just hit
Right.
it. Smash the like button.
And also don't forget, hit that subscribe button too, right?
And share us out.
Yes. You know, and in these tough times where the prices of things are going up and down and all over the place and everybody's in a tizzy about everything, subscribing is free. All you got to do is click that subscribe button and you'd be surprised how much it helps us out. And then speaking of subscribing, did you know that 57% of you guys watching this right now or our saved shows are not subscribed? It's crazy.
Make it
with
make
the numbers,
sense.
especially with the numbers that we see coming in watching our videos. So it helps us out a lot if you can hit that subscribe button. So, and also Michelle has been benefiting from these extra subscriptions because she's been getting extra 5 minutes.
I get a 5-minute shoulder massage every time we get a new subscriber.
That's right. And then Michelle, what do we got next Sunday?
Oh, you ready for this one?
Yeah, this kind of fits the theme we're in right now.
So next Sunday, April 13, 2025, we will be having on author and researcher Simon Bone, author of Verified Near-Death Experiences. So make sure you set your notifications for that discussion.
Absolutely. So that's going to be awesome and probably a little creepy as well, but we'll make it through. All right, so Michelle, let's go ahead and welcome everyone in
I
chat.
was going to say we're going to start the theme of creepiness tonight.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, where do we start tonight?
I don't know. There's a lot.
We've got
I see some new faces in there too.
Yep, William Metz. We have Apollo Crypto, Kelly Lewis, and Diane Boss has joined us tonight. Nathan from the Quantum Show. We've got Straw Dog. We've got, I think I
Sir
said
Brian Bowden.
Yep,
He's
Sir
snuck
Brian
in there.
Bowden is with us tonight. We've got Blue Crossroads, Ancient Oak Psychic Arts.
Oh, nice.
Oh, let's see. Who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing someone.
I don't know. Well, if we did miss anybody, we love you guys. You all
I
know
apologize. It's been a long day. I've been working on school stuff for like 8 hours.
Absolutely. So, all right. Why don't we let everybody know a little bit about our guest? This is her first appearance on the show, and we've been really excited to have her on and speak to her. So, Michelle, why don't you take that away?
Well, a little bit about our guest, Lynn Monet, tonight. She is a world-renowned author of the 5-star rated Omnipresent series, The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End, and The Gap. Lynn is an empath with gifts since she was a child, having the ability to see between the dimensional veils. She started out as Palm Beach runway model, then nurse of more than 30 years, and now international author. She also holds a degree in biological science and is a certified death doula. She will be releasing her 3rd book in the Omnipresent
She
series.
might have already done it because this is from
Could
last
be.
year.
So called 111. Becca Dawn Doctor on Halloween.
Drive.
Oh, Drive.
I think that's an
Sorry.
address.
Oh, yes, that's the address.
Yeah.
Becca Dawn Drive on Halloween 2024. So
Yeah.
it has
Yep.
already released. She has recently been a guest on the TV show Beyond Belief, now streaming on Gaia. Lynn is a popular guest on hundreds of podcasts and radio shows worldwide, and you can check her out at www.lynnmonet.com.
That's right. And there it is on the ticker right there for everybody to check out. But now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's bring on our amazing guest for tonight, Lynn Monet. And there she is. You're muted.
Oopsie, I do it all the time.
Yeah, it's normal.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Absolutely.
Hey, maybe this will make me look more intelligent in my glasses. I usually don't wear them
There you
because I
go.
wear eye contacts. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I was really looking forward to being with you guys tonight.
Hey, it's our pleasure and our honor to actually have you on the show tonight. Got a lot of things that we need to talk about, and would love to just get your input and your experience on with everything that's been going on. So, Lynn.
Yes.
You've been working as a nurse, end-of-life care for over 20 years. What inspired you to write Omnipresent and then delve into this connection between your work and the paranormal?
Well, as Michelle had mentioned, excuse me, that I've had gifts ever since I was little, being able to see things. My family and I lived 3 short blocks behind a hospital that was connected with, at the time, what they called nursing homes that are now called skilled facilities. And so it was commonplace for my siblings and I to see dead people walking through the house. I mean, it was like, there's a doorknob, there's a toaster, there's a dead person. So I'm going to be 62 next month. So I was born back in the 60s, and back in the 60s, that's not exactly something that you would mention, because they literally would send the men in white coats to pick you up and do a lobotomy. So it all kind of started there. My mother, I was born and raised Presbyterian. My mother took a job with the Jehovah's Witnesses when I was 10, which is a book within itself, but we won't go there. I still have post-traumatic stress from that, by the way. But anyway, so I had gifts and continue to have gifts, but after being taken in front of the elders at 10 years old and told that what I was seeing was demons and that I was possessed and, you know, that I was going to die in the fires of hell, I became afraid of my gifts, and I would then run out of the room just as fast as anybody else would. You know, oh, it's a ghost. However, moving forward as a single mother, I purchased a house in East Flat Rock, North Carolina, that I thought was a reward from God for all of the things that I had gone through with my children. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that this house was badly haunted. It literally had 2 demons and a young man that had hung himself in the house. It was so haunted that I never moved in. Never moved in. I couldn't, do that. Anyway, I purchased the house in March, and my children still had 8 weeks of school left in their school. So I didn't want to pull them out of their schools and then, you know, have them start in a new school. I figured that we would commute and they would finish and then they could start fresh in the new year of school. And I would do renovations on the house while I was waiting. And then we would move in the summer as well. And many, many things occurred. And I'm going to kind of go forward past because how long do we have tonight?
If we can keep it about an hour and 40 minutes or so, that's about
Okay.
what we like to do. Yeah.
Okay, good. Then I know where to gear things. So anyway, this house, I had been looking for a house for like 2 years, and I had this realtor that called me one day, and she said, you know, this house just came on the market, and it's almost too good to be true. And she says, and it's in your price range. And being a single mother, I was limited as to my price range. Most of the places that I could afford needed major renovations, or they were built next to a stinky paper mill or something, you know, that was with that. And so I immediately, you know, rushed over to her office, and we drove over to the house, and I'm looking through the papers that she gave me, and I'm looking at this beautiful split level 2-story house on a quarter acre Florida flat lot. And this was in North Carolina, so those are hard to find. And it was beautiful, brick house. And I'm like, are you sure that the price on this house is right? Because I've been looking for 2 years, and this house could easily be $100,000 more than what they're asking for this house. And so I even made her call the listing agent and ask, and she confirmed that it was. And the thing was, is this house hadn't even been listed on the MLS yet. My realtor was in the office when her colleague came in with the pictures from it. So she was able to call me before it was, like I said, even on the MLS, and we drove over. So I'm looking around the neighborhood. I'm thinking, you know, there's got to be a sinkhole or a junkyard or something at the end of the street, or it's got to be in a really bad area. But it wasn't. It was in a beautiful older neighborhood, but the houses were all well kept. The taxes were low. The schools were great. I mean, it was like an ideal place, and it was in walking distance of the hospital. So for me, being a nurse, that was also a plus. So when we went there, we were having trouble with the lock, and the lock is a key piece throughout the whole time that I owned the house, where the realtor, when we walked up to these beautiful double entry doors to go inside, she was putting the key in, and she couldn't get the key to go in. And we thought that maybe the listing agent had left the wrong keys in the box. So it seemed like every time we would talk to each other and say, oh, well, I'm going to try it one more time, then the key would slip in. Then it wouldn't turn. And then, oh, well, now I can't get it out. And, you know, we would keep talking, and then finally it would turn and the door was open, and then she couldn't get the key out. And I entered into the foyer area of the house. And of course, the stairs with the split level, they're descending stairs and ascending stairs. And I kind of wandered up to the upper part of the top of the stairs and viewed in. And I mean, it was this gorgeous house with this large 3-acre mowed lot behind it. And I was standing there imagining, you know, my kids sprawled out on the floor at Christmas time where I would put the Christmas tree. However, when I was walking up the stairs out of my peripheral vision, I saw this young man hanging in the stairwell. And of course, I was like, you know, it took me back. I'm like, what on earth? You know, so I looked directly at it, and of course, then there was nothing there. So I continued up the stairs, and when I got to the top of the stairs and I'm standing there admiring, I felt this energetic thing come at me like a charging bull. And it was almost like there was a portal there, because I could feel I don't know if you've ever, you know, heard people talk about portals. They're often round, and they have this feeling of almost spider webs blowing in them. And I could feel that going across my face. And at the time I thought, well, maybe I walked into a spider that was dangling from the ceiling. Pardon me.
You know, I was just going to say, there was an experience I had when I was a lot younger in playing in a band, and it's actually how I met Michelle actually. But we snuck into an abandoned psychiatric hospital, and we were down in what they called the steam tunnels and all of that good stuff. And we were down there. We had no flashlights. It's pitch black. There's no electricity running or anything. So we're using lighters, right? Really smart. We were not the sharpest, tacks, right? So we're down in these tunnels, and me and the singer are walking shoulder to shoulder as we're going through the tunnels, trying to get to the main building where there was like a swimming pool with all this satanic painting on it. People had broken in and done it, was abandoned for years. And as I'm holding a lighter and holding out in front of me, my singer and I saw what looked like an outline of this huge guy just taking up the whole hallway. And I was like, dude, is that a security guard? He's like, yes, I think that's somebody. They see us. And we both look back, and it's running toward us. And I say, spoiler alert. It was like this weird shadowy mass of, and this was like in 90, I want to say like 93, 94 when we did this. This shadowy mass just came right at us, and we both went like this with our arms up, thinking we were going to just get bowled over because this thing was huge. And when it hit us, it dissipated, and it was like getting sprayed in the face with a very fine mist, and it just disappeared. Of course, we took off running and everything, but that's a great way of explaining it. It's almost like cobwebs just hitting you all over the place. And he experienced the same thing too. And then we were, there was about 5 of us, and we had to head out. So that just brought back that memory of that happening. Yeah.
Yeah. It does happen. Sometimes they're up high, sometimes they're lower. And I didn't, because of my belief system, I was still trying to rationalize what was happening. And when I was charged, it was almost like an angry bull was charging me. I literally had to step back on the stairs and grab the railing behind me so that I didn't fall. And it kind of spooked me. So I kind of slowly went back down the stairs to stand in the foyer area waiting for the real estate lady. And she told me, she says, I just can't get this key out of the lock. She said, I'm going to have to bring some WD-40. She said, if I have to come here again. And all of a sudden it slides right out. While she's talking to me, it just comes right out. And she's like, what on earth? So we went through the house. And the thing is with this house, it enabled me to connect with people of like mind. So I realized that my gifts were gifts, and they weren't such a weirdo. Hey, Brian. And that, yeah.
No, we did not meet at the mental hospital.
The second date. That's funny.
Right.
But so after seeing this house, I would be a fool not to make an offer on it. And I knew that I needed to make an offer that day, because anything decent that I did find, if I wanted to take a couple of days to think about it, by the time I would go back, it was gone. So I asked the realtor if I could bring back my children when they got out of school, and that I would come back at that time and make an offer, because I knew I had within that day. So we agreed to meet back there at 3:00 in the afternoon. So I load up my kids, we're driving. Of course, my kids are like, they're excited, and we pull into the yard and they're running around the yard. Mommy, I love this house. They haven't even been inside, but we were living in a single wide trailer in a iffy kind of neighborhood for a while, because I was recouping financially after a devastating divorce. And, it took me several years to rebuild my credit to even be able to get a mortgage on a house.
Now, this was after, if I understand right, this is after you were going to go into another house, but you couldn't even get into that first house. Is that correct?
No, this is that house.
Oh, this is that house. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, this is that house, the house that I never moved into. I was living in a single wide trailer that I fortunately had, that I was able to go back into. And then I bought a house after that. But anyway, so when, again, we had that issue, but not as bad, because she brought the WD-40 with the lock, and the key worked out better. And my children run into the house, they run upstairs, and of course they're picking out their bedrooms. And there were 3 bedrooms upstairs, and one was kind of small. And then downstairs, there was this 3-car garage, had a workshop with it. And it had a large family room with a wall that was total stone and a fireplace on it. And then it had a bonus room that was like a 13 by 15 foot bonus room down there as well. So my kids are running through the house, picking their rooms, and nobody wanted the small room. So my kids came up and they asked me, can we go downstairs and look around downstairs. And I said, sure, go ahead. They were back up within 5 minutes. My daughter at the time, she's let's see, my son was 8, my daughter was 14, and she said, Mommy, I don't want to move. I don't want to live here in this house. And I was embarrassed because I'm standing there with this realtor that's been dragging me around for 2 years. And here my teenager is saying that she doesn't want to move here. And I said to her, what did you say? And she said, there's something about this house that I don't like, and I do not want to move here. Well, I should have listened. But I didn't. And I'm thinking to myself, our house that we're living in now could fit 4 times inside of this one if you stack it. And I said to her, well, this is not a decision for you to make. And I went ahead and I proceeded. I said a prayer, and I, at that time, made my offer, and found that when the realtor called in, that somebody else had made an offer on the house the same day. So the heat was on. And so I went ahead and I made my offer, and I'm like, if it's meant to be ours, then they'll accept my offer. And sure enough, the next morning I got the call that they had accepted my offer. So as I had said, I purchased the house in March. I was going to do renovations on it. I wanted to put in wooden flooring because it had lighter colored carpet. And I wanted to mention too that during the closing, the people that were selling me the house were very, very late to the closing. So I signed all of my papers. And when they got there, the wife sat there staring at the floor, and she just kept looking at her feet shuffling. And I'm like going from side to side, trying to make eye contact with her. And I said to her, thank you so much, for this. It must be very hard for you to leave this lovely house. I'm going to put some wooden flooring in. And then she says, well, that's what we wanted to do too. And they had already moved out of the house. The house was, I originally was told that the people that were selling the house had purchased another house in another place, that their jobs had changed, that they had to move, and that they were wanting to sell this piece of property very, very quickly. And it turned out that that wasn't true. They had moved 20 minutes away to her parents' house. They still had the same jobs. And when it came time to have the inspection done, I even asked for stupid stuff like having the light bulb changed in the attic and things like that. And I figured I'm going to ask for all of these things. So if there's something that I shouldn't, reason that I shouldn't have this house, there's still an exit, if they decline to do that. And they fixed everything. They fixed it all. And when we sat down for the closing, they literally walked away with a $1,000 check on that house.
Wow.
After everything. I kid you not. And so anyway, I was thrilled. As a single mother, I was so proud, to be able to, it was on a dead end street. And it was like trick or treat neighborhood. So the houses are close enough that the kids can get a lot of candy during that time. And so that evening that we got the keys, we went to the house. And of course, I was fixing dinner in the house for the first time. My son brought his baseball bat. My daughter brought her PlayStation, to put something in their rooms that were, that would signify their space. So all of a sudden, my daughter comes to the doorway, and she said, "What did you want?" And I said, "I didn't, I don't know what you mean. I didn't call you." And she said, "Yes, you did." She said, "You called me twice, and I told you that I was coming, and then you called me again. What did you want?" And I said, "Well, that's funny because I heard you say that you were coming, but I thought you were talking to your brother." And so then my son comes up, and he's peering in from under her arm, and he says, "Mommy, I heard you call her too." So I'm trying to rationalize.
And you heard nothing.
I heard nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard nothing. And other than my daughter saying that she was coming, and I thought that she was talking. So I just said to them, I said, "Well, Brittany's a popular name. There's probably a girl in the neighborhood with the same name, and it's supper time, and her mom might have been outside calling for her, Brittany, to come home. I'm sure you're going to meet her, and you all will make good friends." But the truth of the matter was, is in that short time, the demons were verified. I had Andrew Calder, may he rest in peace. He came up from Georgia Paranormal. He verified that they were, in fact, one was a hell dog. As I learned that there's a hierarchy of angels, there's also a sub-hierarchy of demons and those types of things, that the lower they go, the more things that they can do. And there was then a one that was a little bit closer to well, I don't know how to describe it. One was like a level 5 and one was like a level 3, going from 1 downward. So, and then of course the young man. But anyway, so, you know, in that moment, they have an intelligence about them. Not only did they figure out that I was the mommy lady, they knew my children's names and they were mimicking my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You know, in that short of a time. And people, they need to realize that they do have an intelligence about them. So anyway, we had packed up to leave and I turned off the lights and we went ahead and we left. And I next morning dropped my kids off at school and I'm going back. And when I go to walk inside, I go upstairs, take my purse, put it on the kitchen counter, and I look and I'm like, the oven light is on and the overhead light is on over the stove. And then I start noticing, I'm walking down the hallway, every single light that could have been turned on in that house was turned on. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, well, I know these weren't on when I left, but maybe because the house sold so fast, another realtor came in to show the house, not realizing that it had been sold, you know, or maybe a neighbor was entrusted with a key and didn't realize it was sold and, you know, came in to check to see what we were doing. So I went downstairs and I started to unload my things from the car and I noticed that there's a neighbor unloading groceries across the street. And I decided to go over and introduce myself and ask if somebody in the neighborhood was entrusted with a key, thinking probably it was them. And so nobody was entrusted with a key. And I'm like, well, I don't know what happened, but the lights were all on in the house. And the guy even said, he said, well, my wife and I, we took our walk last night and it was during daylight savings time. So they were out like at 9 o'clock at night because it was starting to get dark. And he said, the only thing that was on in your house were your walkway lights. And those are solar lights. So they didn't see any lights, obviously, in the house. And I'm like, well, you know, it's a new house to me. Maybe they're on some kind of a timer or something. I don't know. You know, I'll just make sure that all the lights are off. Maybe my kids ran back in and turned one on or something, but all of the lights were on. So I turned off all of the lights after I finished. I was there pulling up carpet to save some money so that the wooden flooring could be put down. And so after I finished that day, I went to leave. I made sure all of the lights were turned off and I went to close and lock the door. And I couldn't get the deadbolt to turn in, you know, to lock it. And I tried over and over and I finally had to open the door and hand lock the knob lock and then shut it. And then I started to walk and then I walked to my van and I left. Next morning I arrived there and I got my key out and I go to put it in the deadbolt and the door just opens. I didn't get it in the lock hole. I didn't turn it. It just opened. So I assumed that the reason
now,
why
your kids there at the time?
No, they're at school. They were at school.
Okay.
I had dropped them off at school. So I assumed that it didn't lock right because maybe I didn't have it pulled in the door jamb all the way. So I went in the house again. I put my purse down on the counter and I go to open the back sliding glass doors because I was going to do some painting in the house where I'd pulled up the carpet. I wanted to put a fresh coat on the ceilings before, you know, the wooden floor went in. And I noticed that the sliding glass doors, that the key thing was pulled out and it was dangling on the side and it was unlocked when I went to open it. And I thought, now I'm pretty sure that this was locked when I left, but maybe one of the kids ran back. So it wasn't until I went downstairs to open up the garage doors, which were also unlocked. And again, I'm thinking, here I am. I always have that clicky thing, and these things are manual. They didn't have the clicky thing. So I thought, well, maybe I locked them, didn't lock them, and I thought I did. But then I looked over where I had piled up a whole bunch of boxes about arm's length and literally up to my chin in front of the door that went into the workshop area. And I'm looking at this door and the chain is dangling on the side. And I'm like, whoa, I know for a fact that when I left that was locked. You know, somebody had to have come in here and moved those boxes from in front of that door, unlocked that chain and pushed them back. Somebody's got a key. So again, I go across the street to the neighbors that I had just been at the day before. And I said, you know, I left yesterday. I said, and I came and a lot of the locks are undone on the house. I said, was anybody here yesterday after I left to go home. And the wife comes into the doorway and she says, I'm not trying to be a nosy neighbor, but when you left, while you were on your way to your vehicle, you doubled back and you checked the doorknob. You went and you shook the door. And I didn't even remember doing that. So the door was secure in the, in the jam, for lack of a better word, when I left. And I said to her, I said, look, we're not moving in until the summer. I have people coming in to do renovations, so I don't want to change the locks. Would you please call me if you notice children playing in the yard or anybody at the house? Here's my phone number. Call the police first and then call me, because no one should be there unless I'm there. I said, and if they're going to be there, I'll let you know if I'm going to be gone. So they agreed to do that. But so many things occurred with that house. I mean, the list just continues to go on. There was one period of time, and I'm still in denial. I'm still in denial about these things. I've got 13 witnesses that saw and or had things happen to them. I had gone to the house and it was raining outside and my kids were at school. And for some reason, I left my cell phone in the car and I didn't realize it. When I went into that foyer, I slipped and fell so hard that my leg was twisted back and I didn't think I was going to be able to get up. And I remember laying there thinking, how am I going to reach out for somebody to pick up my kids? And all of a sudden I hear this ferocious growling at the door, which my head was like, this far from, and it sounded like it was a ferocious dog that if I had opened that door would have attacked me. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, thank God, the door is shut. And I finally managed to get myself up off of the floor. And later that day, when I came back with my kids, I told them, I said, be careful out in the yard because somebody's dog is loose out there. It turned out that there was a hell dog that would run those stairs. It manipulated the locks on the doors. So I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. And then the other one was kind of a cheerleader for the other one. It would leave imprints and do little things, and then they'd kind of stand back and laugh. But there was one, I couldn't keep workers in the house. I had a guy come, and after one day he left and then didn't come back. He told me that he had other work to do. I found another guy to come, and he was supposed to put the wooden flooring in because we were getting to the point and getting later into time where I needed to move my furniture in. And not only that, now I had sold my single wide, which I had to undo in order to move back into because I didn't move into the house. And when I went there, after he was supposed to have finished it, I walk in, I open the foyer, and the floor's not done. So I reached out to him, and he said that he had a relative that had to go into the hospital and to leave his DeWalt tools outside in a safe place. And so I did. And they sat there for almost 2 weeks. And I tried to get a hold of him, and his phone got disconnected. And I never even paid him for the little bit that he did do, but he did not come back. So he
didn't even come back for his tools.
Nothing. Left the tools, left everything there. He did
Any
not.
idea what he experienced?
I finally got to find out what they were experiencing with the third guy.
Okay.
The third guy was a friend of mine's cousin. She was a nurse that worked with me at the facility that I was working at. And he came to the house, and I was in the hallway painting the hallway because he was going to work the wooden flooring out of my son's room down the hallway. And he was in my son's room it was tongue and groove flooring. He had a trowel and a block and a mallet to kind of tap in the tongue and groove thing. And I'm standing in the hallway. And all of a sudden I turn and I see this young man, not him, but a young man that came to the top of the stairs, walking up from the foyer. And I thought, to myself, this must be some confused person, or maybe I didn't hear them knock. And I said, did you knock? And then all of a sudden I look straight away at the person that's standing there, and he's gone. But I can see that energetic waffling that you see with the energetic. So I knew that they was still there. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a ghost in the house. That's who's been unlocking the doors and turning on and off the water, because that was happening too. and turning on and off, the lights and all of those sorts of things. And I'm like, maybe I need a blessing. The funny thing is Bobby in the room thought that I was talking to him, and he says, no, I must have just dropped something. And so I left that day at around 2:00 to go pick up my kids, and I'm sitting in the car line, and Bobby's supposed to be finishing the work. And he was going to even stay over through the weekend and finish the work because there was a bed in my daughter's room and the electric and everything was on. So all of a sudden I get this call, and it's Bobby, and he says, I have to leave. I have to leave right now. There's something weird about this house, and I've never experienced anything like this. And the line drops. It's gone. So I'm trying to call him back, and I'm not able to get through. And the funny thing is when I finally did get a hold of him about an hour later, he said, it was nothing, but I'd rather be there when you're going to be there. And he tried to make an excuse that he didn't have his saw to cut, but yet I saw the saw in the back of his truck. I knew that wasn't true. So I just figured maybe the ghost had spooked him or something. So when I went home that day,
Did you ever have a feeling this was more than just a ghost, though? I mean, you've been around this stuff since you were young. Did you think there was something? Did you pick up on anything besides seeing the ghost and your feelings?
I did, but I kept pushing them away because you've got to remember, from 10 years old, I was terrified.
Yes.
So I had to keep telling myself, there's nothing there. It's not real, and universal law, which doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? That you're protected and all of that sort of thing. So I kept rationalizing, everything. And so it just so happened that day also, when I left him, he left so fast that he didn't secure the house. And the room that he was in, my son's room, had a window that was older, so it would open like this instead of up and down. It was one of the crank windows type thing. So we had this oddball fan thing, air conditioning fan thing in the window, but there was a gap that was open that bugs and stuff could come in over the top of it. And so I'm like, when I got it, did you lock up the house? Did you close the windows? No. And he said, I'm sorry, I didn't. I had to leave quickly, and I said, well, I'm, sorry that happened, but I need to go back there. Can you meet me back there? And he didn't want to go back. So I asked my next door neighbor, Ellen. I said,
he denied, he totally refused to go back.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he never did come back, but I did find out. So I asked my friend Ellen next door, I said, listen, and plus I was proud. I kind of wanted to show her the house that I was moving into. And I said, would you come with me? I said, I have an air conditioner that I need to pull in from a second story window. And the guy didn't secure the house, and she agreed to come along. And I'm telling her the story about the young man on the stairs that I saw. And I said to her, are you afraid of ghosts? And she says, no. And I said, well, do you mind, I think that there's a ghost in this house, so you may see him. I said, but I appreciate you coming with me. When we get there, if you're afraid to go in, I'll see if I can get the lady's husband across the street to come in and help me. And so we get there. And again, now I'm having trouble with the lock, and I get the door open, and my friend Ellen steps inside, and she's standing in the foyer, and she cracks a joke. She says, ha ha ha, you're not going to let the boogeyman get me, are you?
Oh, no.
And they targeted her. You don't mock them. That is one thing for sure. They targeted her. So all of a sudden the key slides out. We close the door. I take her down the rooms. We pull in the air conditioner. And then we stopped in the kitchen. And I had gotten these wooden carved Morgan horse heads because my daughter was having this wild horse theme in her room to anchor her, her curtains over her bed. And Ellen was holding one in each hand. And Ellen was a rather voluptuous woman. And I'm mentioning this for a reason. And she's standing there, and all of a sudden, I hear this sound that sounded like a didgeridoo. It was this electrical wah, wah, wah kind of sound. And when I turned, I could see from floor to ceiling this wall of ectoplasm, which is a portal, moving in on us from the room, and I didn't say anything because I thought I was the only one that could hear it. And again, I'm ignoring because I didn't know at the time that was what it was, So Ellen's standing there, and all of a sudden she starts screaming. She says, "It got me! It got me! What is it? A spider bite?" And she drops the horse heads on the floor, and I lift up the back of her shirt, and she's got a 4-inch diagonal claw mark between her shoulder blades, even underneath her bra strap. She was a voluptuous woman, and she had to have her boyfriend help her fasten her bra every morning because she couldn't reach. So I'm saying that because there was no way she could have done it. It looked like a single cat scratch, and it was starting to bead blood. And as a medical professional, wound care, a lot of wound care that I did, the thing about a wound is when it welts up like that and starts to bleed, even if you pick a scab off, it never has that reaction again of that welting kind of thing. And so I knew that the wound was fresh, and I'm like, "Ellen, what happened? There was no furniture or anything." And I'm like, "Did you maybe scratch yourself on the corner of the car door getting out?" And she starts screaming again. And she said, "It got me again. It got me again." And it had clawed her on the left side, just below her belly button off to the side. There was about a 2.5-inch claw mark. And I told her, I said, "Go to the car." I knew that they were targeting her. And I said to her, "I'm just going to, I wanted to lock up as best that I could really, really quick of the front door." And we got out of there, didn't even do a very good job, but I figured if anybody wants to break in there, that house can take care of itself.
Hey, Lynn.
Yes.
Can I show you something since you've brought that up?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you a couple pictures.
Okay. And then I'll tell you about, that's interesting.
What's interesting about these is we were just recently talking about a mutual friend of ours, Nathaniel Gillis.
Mm-hmm.
And the show that we did last with him, we were talking about necronetics and, the demonology and things like that.
Yes.
This was a listener who was watching the show, watched it all. Everything was good. The next day, he's doing whatever. He feels this burning sensation, and he's got these claw marks on his arm. And one of our psychic friends saw this and said, "Oh no." And by the way, there's our guy, our Canadian. He bought a shirt. He sent us a picture. But yeah, completely. Our psychic friend said that it's definitely because there's four claw marks there. Mm-hmm. It's some type of a demonic attack from watching that show. And we were totally blown away. And now you're just bringing up her attack as well. Mm-hmm. Was it 4 scratches like that?
They sometimes show up as 4, but they can also show up as 1 single scratch. And in her case, it was 1 single one, looked similar to that, not as long with that. And I have seen claw marks on people since then. I did a rotation later in life as a nurse to further my degree, and I was in a mental hospital, and a girl was diagnosed schizophrenic, but she really had attachments on her, was covered in claw marks. And I recognized them because they look similar to the claw marks that my friend had in that kitchen. She got them while I was standing next to her in the kitchen. So we got out of there. I'm going home, and I can see out of my peripheral vision that there was like this attachment that was on her too, that was kind of riding in front with this, which also looks like the archons that attach on people with addiction, where the body is bigger and the head is much smaller, and it has this triangular thing that goes from the top of the head to the nape that's floppy. It looks like a shark's fin, but it doesn't stand up rigid. It flops. So anyway, and that's taking this in another direction. But so I'm looking at this, and she's complaining about it burning almost all the way home. And finally, when we get home, she's she goes into the house and she's better. But I went into the house. It was my first time going through the internet looking for a paranormal group or somebody to come and help me with that house, because I realized, then that there was a problem. And called people. Most of them wanted to come out and take pictures. I didn't need somebody to come out and identify the fact that I had a problem. I already knew that I had
You
a
knew
problem.
you got the problem.
Yeah, I needed somebody to come and get him out. I'm a single mother. I mean, I'm not going to move in there with my kids, and have them come to me complaining that there's something under their bed or in their closet or in their bed for that matter. And there really is. I'm not going to be able to save them. They'll crawl in bed with me while the covers are being pulled off of all of us, So I wanted them out of there. And so finally I reached out to, and also I have to add this, I went through the yellow pages. I called every church in the yellow pages, and I had most of them tell me to reach out to the Catholics because they do those sorts of things. So I ended up contacting the Catholic diocese in Charlotte and went all the way up to the Archbishop. Couldn't get any help. They do exorcisms on, I don't remember if it was houses or people, but there's certain things they didn't do anymore. I think they did blessings on houses. But the thing that it was is, at the time I was still Presbyterian, and I reached out to a minister in the church that I was affiliated with. And even he mentioned that the Bible thumper scared him more than the things in the house, because, you bring that kind of thing up, people turn green and run. And literally I had people that told me that if I was attending their church, that this wouldn't be happening to me. I had one pompous lady tell me, because I mentioned that I was a single mother. So she assumed that I was promiscuous, even though I hadn't been out on a date in 4 years. And she said, she implicated that it was because of my promiscuous behavior that I brought this on myself. And I'm thinking to myself, your slogan is, what would Jesus do? Well, I get it that you're scared and don't really know what to do, but he would have at least helped me. So finally I contacted Father Andrew Calder with the Georgia Paranormal group at that time. And he, the Presbyterian Ministers Church, actually, he took funds out for Andrew Calder's group to come up there to, work with the house. And the Presbyterian minister wanted to be a part of it so that if this kind of thing ever happened again, he would know, what to do with that. So the day that they came up the day before, and we were in sitting, all the lights are off. He's going around, he's picking up all these EVP readings. He's getting things on infrared camera. He actually got pictures of the demons. However, he wouldn't let me look at them because he said that would kind of bring them back if I even started thinking about them. So anyway, I am sitting on the stairs and he's upstairs doing his thing. And all of a sudden I hear this buzzing sound like a bee coming around. And it was this orb that stopped right in front of me, like a helicopter just stopped there, and it was blue. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, blue ones aren't bad. Red ones are usually angels and loved ones. The green and yellow ones are fae, or, sometimes alien, or things that are a little bit more tricksters. But when the blue and the red come together, those are the worst kind. So this blue one's hovering in there, and all of a sudden I hear this buzzing and a red one matches up with it, and they both fly off together. And I'm like, you've got to be joking. So the next day.
So you've had experience with that before then, if you knew that. Is that from when you were younger? With the colors of the orbs?
Well, when the things started happening, I started reading up on things.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of this, because it took Andrew about.
So in the background, you're doing your research as well. There's stuff going on, but this is different than what you've had to deal with before, with the seeing dead people, because you guys kind of grew up next to that house. And okay. All right.
And just to back up and remind me that I've gotten to this point, but I want to go back to the third guy that came to the house, which we got to find out what was happening. So I said to my friend at work, I said, listen, the next time that you see Bobby, would you please ask him what happened in the house? I have a feeling it was something paranormal. And she says, okay. So July comes, 4th of July comes, he's at her house. They're having a party. He had a couple of beers, so he's feeling a little talkative. And she asked him, she said, what happened at Lynn's house? And he said, Lynn is such a nice lady. I feel so bad that I didn't finish it. Am I allowed to say a cuss word on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And so he says, but that house is fucked up. He said, I couldn't, he says, Yeah, he says, I couldn't, I'm sorry that I couldn't go back and finish. And she said, well, what happened? And he started to explain that after I left, that he was sitting there getting ready to, he just put adhesive on a piece and he was putting in the tongue and groove flooring and he was reaching for his mallet and his wooden block to tap it into place tightly. And all of a sudden his tools weren't there. So he's on one of these rolling seats because he had bad knees, so like a garden wheelie thing. So he thought maybe he had rolled over them. So he's like scooting and he's looking and they're not there. And he turns his head and right in front of the door, lined up 1, 2, 3, are his tools. And he's like, it spooked him, but he's like, oh, Lynn came back and she's playing a joke on me. She must have snuck in here quietly and picked up my tools and lined them up like that and darted out of the room. So he got up to pick up his tools and he's calling for me in the hallway, looking for me. And of course I wasn't there. And he's like, well, he turns on the light in the bedroom and he had a battery operated radio that he had turned on to play some music. And he sits back down and goes to put in another piece. And all of a sudden he hears the tools dragging and he sees the tools go around and they line up again right in front of the door. And he said that he could not get out of there fast enough. Oh, and the light turned itself off and then the radio, or maybe it was the other way around, but one turned off right after the other. You just had an orb
fly behind you.
I'm sure I did, because they come in whenever I'm talking about this kind of stuff.
It went up and out this way.
Yeah, well, I'll just have to get out the dragon's blood and make sure that it's
the sage.
Yeah. Actually, when it comes to demons, it's better to use the dragon's blood. The sage just tickles it and tickles them and makes them come back with a vengeance and pisses them off. Yeah. So sage is good for what I call the micrometastasis after you have cleared a house, but it doesn't work with demons. I'm sorry. I'm probably bursting a lot of people's bubbles, but I've actually had, when it's different when you have to live in it versus just coming there to clear it out. So anyway, so I got to find out, what was happening, and it made sense. And finally, I got a fourth guy to come in there that liked to smoke weed and drink beer. And I'm like, you know what? This guy carries his own demons, on his back. So they didn't bother him. He did great work. And as long as he didn't do it around my kids, which at that point I was not, taking my kids there anymore at all. And, I left him there. So after all of the clearing and everything was done, the priest told me that it would be okay for me to bring my kids back. Because now the time has passed. I had sold my single wide. I had to renege on that agreement, give the people their money back because I'm still needing to live there, and everything was needing to move forward. So I needed to mow the grass, and I took my kids with me, and my son had a friend that came along, and they were playing in a tree out front. And all of a sudden, I went in to start the thing, and the friend comes in, Zachary comes in, and he comes down the stairs, and he's holding his neck, and he's wincing. And I'm like, what, are you okay? What happened? And he says, I don't know. I got to the bottom of the stairs and it just hit me. And then he started to retch, which was a dead giveaway that he was under a spiritual attack. And so I'm like, I got him to the car. I called to my kids. I'm like, we need to go. Do not come in the front door and down the stairs. And so, of course, my son runs to the car, and my daughter didn't hear me. So she comes down the stairs to see what I'm calling for. And she gets to the bottom stair and she grabs her ankle and she says, she says, it's hot. She says, I didn't twist it or anything, but she couldn't even hardly bear weight on her foot as she's hobbling into the garage. So I got her into the car, and I literally, grabbed my purse and didn't go back down there, closed up everything and left. And as we got off of the street, everybody started to feel better. And a whole bunch of other things happened in that house in addition to what I'm telling you here, because I'm kind of moving forward. Mm-hmm. So I called the priest and I said, look, there is no way. I said, I am selling that house. And he said, oh, no, you stand your ground in the name of Jesus Christ and you tell them to leave. And I said, look, I cannot imagine having a Thanksgiving dinner with extended family over, and I see a demon walk through the house, and I stand up at the dinner table and start yelling at it to get out in the name of Jesus Christ. how long do you think my guests are going to stay? You know, how many people do you think are going to come over and visit? Not only that, they're not going to invite me to their house either because they're going to think I'm bringing more than chocolate cake. You know, I said, I can't do this. I can't do this as a mother to my kids. There's just no way. Your house is your haven. It's the place that you go to relax. And this house, I'm not staying. So I put the house up for sale by owner. My mom and I, we were clearing things out, and remind me to tell you about when I met the hell dog in the garage, but that comes later. I don't want to forget that one though. So there was one day my mom and I were over there. We were cleaning everything, getting it ready. While I was there was a couple that had called that wanted to come the next day and see the house. They had grown up in the area. They had a similar style house that the lady had grown up in, and they had 3 kids, and they made plans to come over. So the next day, my mom and I go back, and we bring some things to kind of stage play because there was nothing in the house. You know, we were going to hang some towels and a plant or something. And as we're walking up the sidewalk to the double entry doors, my mom looks up and she said, "Did you tint the windows?" And I'm like, "No, why?" And I looked up, and you couldn't see the vertical blind divisions of the vertical blinds. And so I assumed that they were pulled aside. And then I looked to the lower level, and there were flies. There were flies all over the windows, and they were so thick on the upstairs windows that they looked 3D, like they were moving. And I said, "Oh my God," I said, "those are flies." And my mom's like, "What are we going to do?" And so we expected for them to swarm us when we went into the house. But the reality of it is they were plastered all over the windows because they were trying to get out too. And they had been there so long that on the woodwork around the windows, they had speckled fly poop all over. The excrement was just speckled everywhere, these brown speckles.
This was inside the house?
Inside the house. Yes, they were all inside the house. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine how they got in. There was no garbage. There was no cleaning items. There was no food. There was nothing to draw them in. And my mom and I noticed that there were no hatchlings. There was no evidence of maggots or anything. These were big, full-grown flies. There was one window in the breakfast nook area, and as I mentioned, the windows opened like this, that the cranks were broken on, and the people that sold me the house had painted them shut on the outside. And there was a screen that was not damaged. There were no holes or anything in it. And there were flies between that screen and those glass panes. And I don't know how they got there. My mother and I had to take the screens off of those windows, open the front window to the kitchen and take the screen off. And we were ushering out with towel, like a helicopter, trying to usher them out the window. And we had to go from room to room to do that. And I lost track of time. And I'm thinking, oh my God, if these people pull up and all these flies are here, we're trying to clean the brown excrement off of the windows. But I didn't realize that they had called and left a message on my phone that they couldn't make it that day, which turned out to be a blessing. So when we were leaving the house, I called the people back from my car, which made a huge difference because when I originally scheduled them, it was in the house and I was overheard by the things that were living there. And so we, I don't know why something's catching in my throat. Sometimes they don't like it when I talk about them, but I do it anyway. So, and there was one time that I was on a show, and Brian can verify this because I think he was in the audience for this. There was a loud growl when I started talking about the second demon, which I'm not going to do because the orbs are already, I just saw another one fly through here. So anyway.
Well, let's just be clear. The house you're in right now is not the house that you're talking about, just so everybody knows.
No, and this house is clear, and if they want to stick around, I'll love them to death and teach them a class on love, and then they look at me like there's a stench in the room and they can't get out of here fast enough because it's a repellent to send them love. So not to love them, but to send them love. And I don't say that in a mocking way, but it is very effective. It's more effective than many, many things is love because they can't stand it. So they hate it. So anyway, the next day made arrangements to come the next day, and my mom and I went 2 hours early that time because we wanted to make sure that we weren't walking into the fly problem again. And of course, everything was fine. No flies, the house was clean, it smelled good, and the people came. And they had 2 of their 3 children with them, the 2 younger children. And of course, the kids are running through deja vu like my kids did, picking out their bedrooms. And again, nobody wanted the small bedroom. So the kids came up and they asked if they could go downstairs and look around. And I'm like, well, yeah, go ahead. Lo and behold, the little girl and the little boy were back up in about 5 minutes. And the little girl's eyes were as big as a deer in headlights. And I overhear her saying to her brother, Tommy can have the creepy room downstairs. I'll take the little room. So I don't know. In that moment, I realized as a mother, I could not bring myself to sell the house to someone with children, and because they could see them. So lo and behold, a retired couple from Florida comes up, and they ended up wanting to buy it as a cash buy. And we're signing papers upstairs in the house. And as we're going down the stairs to the foyer to exit the front entry doors, their adult daughter goes out in front of me. I go behind her, and the wife and the husband that are purchasing the house are behind me. And I overhear the wife say to the husband, "Why did you push me?" And he said, "I didn't push you." She said, "Yes, you did. You pushed me." And he said, "No, I'm 3 steps back. I can't even reach you." And she says, "Well, I don't know what happened," because she stumbled on the stairs. And of course, I knew what happened, that it was that hell dog, creating problems on the stairs. So when they came out with good conscience, I couldn't bring myself to do something to them that I had done to me. And I did find the couple that sold me the house afterwards and found out what was happening. That was interesting. And that's in the second book. But so I said to them, I said, do you believe in ghosts? And they immediately cut me off and they said, "Nope, we're Baptist. We don't discuss those sorts of things. We don't entertain those sorts of things, and we are protected." And I'm like, okay.
There's not even a more supernatural book out there talking about this kind of stuff than the Bible, for God's sakes. I don't understand the religious scaredy catism. You know what I mean? It's like you read
denial.
a book. Yeah, the denial.
Yeah, it's all
right?
about denial.
Like the one worker who's like, "Oh, Lynn must have came in and moved my thing. She's playing a joke." No, there's something going on. You just want to deny.
That's why he turned on the light in the radio, because he was feeling creepy. And the thing
right.
is you've got to, you think about it too. So many times children, under age 5, before those filters go into place, and people even getting ready to pass where the filters are effacing, and they start seeing their loved ones from the other side come in. Your parents tell you, "Oh, there's nothing there. There's no such thing as ghosts." So these spirits become the boogeyman. So anything that you can't touch is the boogeyman. And that's how we were all raised. So you either rationalize it and pretend that it's not there. And even with religion too, there are so many things that live along with us on the earth right now, that live paralleling us, but because their frequency is higher than ours, we can't see them, but they're there. And I can see them. And even like with the Aztecs and things like that, they're still on the earth. They just have found a way to elevate their frequency, and you can't see them. So, and that goes with Fae and elementals and the whole list of things. So anyway, the day came for closing. We closed on the house. And about 6 months later, I'm heading down I-26, and there's a backup. And I had to get off of Upward Road, which was the road that I'd get off to go to my house, and the house that I sold in East Flat Rock. And I'm trying to cut to the roads that are close to the interstate so that I can find a way to get back on. And it just so happened that it took me past on the street that passes the street where that house was. And the house was 2 houses in on the left. So as I'm passing, I noticed that there's a sign in the front yard. But where it was sitting and where I could see it from, it was either in the neighbor's yard or in the yard of the house that I sold, but I couldn't be for sure because it was a quick thing. So I went to the next street and I'm like, I have to know. I have to know if they're selling that house. Because I mean, if they had only been in there for 6 months. And I really, really had hoped that because of their belief system, that it would work out for them. Or out of all of the denominations of religion, I didn't even tell you about the Catholic priest that almost wet his pants and was shaking so bad he made it worse, because he was exuding loosh that they were feeding on like chocolate from his fear. So, but anyway, I had hoped that there might have been a delayed effect that took care of the problem so that these people could live there peacefully. And so I pull up on the next street and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I say a prayer. I'm like, look, please, I don't want them to see me driving past. I don't want them to come out and invite me in because I'm not going to do that. But I have to go back by and see what that sign is. And so I turned on and turned down the street, and it was a dead end street. And I drive past the house, and sure enough, it's a for sale by owner sign. And my heart just sunk in that moment. I thought, damn, those things are chasing more people out, because that house, and some of the things that I didn't mention was that house had been sold multiple times within a 4-year period. And at one point was bank owned and just sat empty. And some of the people that I had come through to help clear the house talked about how it was 3 feet into a ley line that it had broken into, that these interdimensional beings were using as a freeway. And because the edge of the house, if it had been built 3 feet over, it wouldn't have been haunted. So these things were coming in through the fireplace in the downstairs. And I also learned that it's not about the age of a house, it's about the age of the ground that it's built on. So a brand new house can be haunted if it's built in the wrong place. Sure. So, yeah, so I go to the end of the street and I turn around in these people's driveway, and I'm just, my heart, I felt terrible, that it didn't work out for them, because I really wanted for it to. And so I'm driving down the street and I just almost get in front of the house, and my radio in my car turns on full blast. And I'm like, I'm trying to get it to turn off. I'm trying to get it to change channel, and it's blaring. So I raced up to the stop sign and literally left skid marks getting off the street, because I didn't want to attract, any attention to myself. And when I made that turn off of the street, I get maybe 2 or 3 feet down and the radio shuts itself off. They were letting me know that they knew I was there, and they wanted me to know that they were still there. Now, during the process of one of the clearings that I had, which was with a Native American woman, we did release the young man that had hung himself in the house. I had verified the fact with the next door neighbor who had been on the street before they had even paved it. He was the first house. He had made mention that when the house was built, it was built in the 1970s, that when the house was built, the family that moved in had a son and a daughter, and that the parents were going through a divorce, and that the mother came home and found the son hanging in that stairwell, and that they ended up selling it. And also, we helped cross him over. He did get crossed over. I want to mention too that when I was on the phone that day calling all of the paranormal groups seeking assistance, my daughter overheard me talking on the phone to Andrew Calder, as a matter of fact. And she came out and she said, Mommy, she says, I know what Claude Ellen. Well, as a parent, you don't want to give too much information. You don't want, if they ask where they come from, you want to make sure if they want to know the birds and the bees, or if they come from Georgia. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to tell them too much. So I said to her, well, what do you mean? And she said, there are 3 things in that house. She went on to tell me about how my son and my daughter were downstairs, and they with no furniture, they were playing their Nintendo or whatever it was they had, some video game thing, and they were sitting on the stoop in front of the fireplace. And my daughter said that she felt this huff behind her, and that when she turned around, up on its haunches was this hell dog with red eyes, and she said, and dirty fingernails. And she said something just told her to start fanning her body like a helicopter, because it would move it. And then, of course, they got out of there quickly and never mentioned to me what they had seen. And then she told me about the young man. She described him. The way that I had seen him was he was wearing blue jeans. He had on a white Oxford shirt, long sleeved, brown hair parted down the middle, kind of feathered back, 80s style, loafers, no socks. But it looked like he had really, really bad acne because his cheeks were red. And the way that my daughter described him was white shirt, jeans, but that he had sunken in cheeks, which would appear the same because they were darker colored, and the brown hair. So she described him exactly the same. I had seen the hell dog, which I kind of left that part out too, which I can go into if you want me to.
I wrote it down. Hell dog in garage.
Oh, and that too. Yes.
Yeah.
Let me go to when I first saw the hell dog. It was our first night spending the night there. We only spent 2 nights there. I had blow up mattresses, and my kids had drugged them into the master bedroom, and we had the windows open because the weather was nice in March. It was kind of cool outside. So I decided that, there were so many rooms that I had started. I just wanted to finish one and have it decorated that I could go in and close the door and have it be beautiful. So I decided to paint the master bedroom bathroom. And so I went in there, I painted it. I finished painting it in like 2 hours, the ceiling, everything, because it was a small bathroom. And when I come out, my kids are sound asleep on the mattresses, and the dog is with them. And I go into the kitchen. That's another thing too. I couldn't get my dog to go into the house, but I go into the kitchen to rinse out my paintbrushes. It was like 11:30 at night. And I leave to go out of the kitchen. And when you would go out of the kitchen, there was a wrought iron railing because the stairs had the ascending stairs right in front of me and the descending stairs where the wrought iron railing was so that you wouldn't fall into it. And as I'm moving forward, I see out of my peripheral vision on the white double entry doors, this very, very fast moving thing coming up from the ground floors, going around right in front of me, and it shot down the hallway. This thing was standing on its haunches. It was about 5'7". I'm 5'9", and it was a little bit shorter than me. It was kind of hunched. It had long rabbit-like ears, but not on top. They were on the sides, and they were turned backwards like the FTD man. And they were grazing over its shoulders, which it was kind of hunched. Its feet were moving so fast underneath it that I could just see fluttering, and it had a bushy tail like a squirrel. The skin on it was kind of just like laid over bone, but it had a brown color to it that was very, very dull. And it had a narrowing to the nose, but it had large openings at the end of its nose, like a horse nose. And it shot down the hallway, and I stood there frozen. I'm like, what on earth is that? Again, I'm rationalizing. I'm like, well, it's been a while since I've eaten anything. My blood sugar could be low. The fumes from the paint could be getting to me, thing. And I'm making up all of these things, but yet I know that I've just seen something horrific that you almost can't describe in human words, the way that its appearance was. So all of a sudden, my dog is at the end of the hallway with my kids, and I hear my dog ferociously growling, and which was not like her. She was a little tiny miniature schnauzer, a little black dog. And so I went down to the hallway. That, of course, distracted me from being in my funk. And I go down the hallway to see what she's growling at. And she is literally, that little German dog is standing just back from the doorway, fixated on the doorway, growling with her ears back, and her hair was up on her back. And I'm like, so I kind of petted her head as I went in, and she put her ears back up for a minute, and then her ears were still back, and she continued to growl. And I thought, well, maybe she hears something outside, like a raccoon or something. And living in a trailer park, having your windows open at night is an invitation and not a luxury. And here upstairs, it's a luxury. So it wasn't something that the dog was used to. So I let the dog out. And of course, I had a hard time getting her to come back into the house. I had to lift her and carry her back into the house. Prior, when we had come to the house, she shirked so hard off of her collar that it came off over her head. I had to leave her out in the front yard for a while. and then bring her in. And there's so much more to it than that. She was actually in the room with my kids when they saw the hell dog the first time, and she was pawing at the drywall next to the door, trying to make a hole to get out of the room. So anyway, so she runs in and she nestles down in between the kids, and I shower real quick and crawl in with the kids too. I'm exhausted. And we wake up the next morning, and my kids are going to go to school from the house. I'm going to drive them there. And I said to my daughter, I said, how did you sleep last night? And she said, I didn't. She said, I felt like something was standing in the doorway staring at me all night long. And my son, the night before, had taken a bath. He had on his little Bob the Builder or whatever thing it was that he was into at that time, short-sleeved. And I'm mentioning this for a reason. When he woke up that morning, he had bite marks on his legs. He had 3 bite marks on his legs, 2 on one leg on the thigh and 1 lower, and on the thigh on the other leg. And they looked like dog bite marks. They were purple. You could literally count the teeth of them. And it was too big to be a rat, and it was too small to be my dog. And my dog wasn't prone to biting anyway. And I said to my son, I said, Austin, you've got bite marks on your legs. What happened? And he's just looking down, and he's kind of running his finger over him. And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, were you playing with your dinosaur? Because he had that green Toy Story dinosaur with the teeth, type thing. Mm-hmm. But the teeth were placed differently than it would have if it had been that toy dinosaur. And he couldn't explain where he had gotten them from. And the thing is, man, if somebody had gotten bitten to make that bruised impression of teeth like that, you would feel it. And it happened during the nighttime while we were sleeping there.
And he never woke up or anything.
Nope. Slept right through it. So, and that morning, I mean, that was the last time that I brought my kids there to the house. There had been one other time before that where my daughter had brought a friend along with the same name of Brittany to do a sleepover. And they had gone into the kitchen to get Oreos, and something spooked the young girl, because I think she saw something with the stairwell. She wouldn't say, but it spooked her so badly that she wanted to go home at 2:00 in the morning. How many 14-year-olds do you know that want to leave a slumber party at 2:00 in the morning, and go home? So,
exactly.
So I ended up having to let her call her parents, because we were a good half an hour away from, because she was commuted them from where we were living. And so the parents talked the girl into, to staying for the rest of the time, but we got up early that morning and, took her back. So that was the first time that we'd slept over. And then the second time was where I saw the hell dog. But there were many other, for instances, in that house. And I'm not even going to bring up the second one because I've got a lot of things flying around in here. My house is clear, but things do come close and fly around, when I do talk about these sorts of things. And
well, there was a point there, and I know and for everybody watching and listening, you're in that storm belt that's going on right now.
Yes.
From Ohio all the way down to like Mississippi, the huge mass of storms that's moving towards you guys, toward the East Coast. And but there was a point there after I showed the pictures of what happened to the one viewer, his arms, you became pixel. I mean, your voice didn't go out, the audio didn't go out, but the camera and everything was completely pixelated and staggering and everything else. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, that might be a storm. It eventually cleared up. It was almost like your camera was getting slowed down and distracted by something. I mean, really, really bizarre.
I'm sure that it was, because they can manipulate electronics. They can come through electronics, for that matter. I mean, there's so many things. When I reached out to contact the family that had sold me the house, their last name was Rottens, of all things.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I reached out to them to, I had gone through the records, and I had found them, and I contacted through snail mail. I reached out through snail mail, and the husband ended up calling me back, and I made mention to him that the house was sold, that I wasn't going to sue them or anything. I mean, I remember telling the attorney that did the closing on the house, because when I realized that it was haunted, I called him up and said, is there any way I can get out of this mortgage? Because I'm not moving in this house, and he's like, well, why? And I told him, and he says, you've got to be joking. No, that can't be right. I'm like, look, you and your wife are more than welcome to come and spend the weekend here. The house, the electric's on, there's furniture in here for you to sleep in. You can even bring your pets. And he's like, no, thank you. The funny thing is when I saw him in the closing of the house that I bought after that, he was telling me, he says, I was in a house recently doing a closing, and I kept feeling a draft at my back. He says, and I was thinking of you and what you told me. So there was always a little piece of everybody that they know that this stuff is real and true. They've just been conditioned to ignore it or not to believe it.
Yeah.
Lynn, do you have any incense or anything burning around you?
No.
Okay, just saw another one.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I will be burning some stuff here shortly.
I was going to say, and I had texted over to Wayne. I really want us to continue to focus on the story of this house, but we still have so much more to discuss with being a death doula and everything. So we are definitely going to have you on for a part 2.
Absolutely.
I want to call tonight
that.
a part 1 because I know I'm sitting here quietly, but I am so intrigued and freaked out by this. I've already told the chat I'm not buying a split level house anywhere in the States.
Right.
Well, not in North Carolina. I come to find out that whole area is haunted, and I didn't know that. There's actually a book written about how the Playhouse and all of that area is haunted. I was from Florida. I didn't know. Of course, the local people knew, but I didn't know. And that goes into the second book, talking about some of the properties that were. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much more. There's so much more.
Well, you had these people come in, these paranormal investigators, and they're trying to clear the house. You've had the Catholic priests come in. You had all this stuff, but then you mentioned that there's a ley line that's connected. So were you ever able to figure out, nail it to one thing? The ley line's powering a portal that's in your basement. How much time did you spend in your basement? Did you ever see anything? And
the thing that was ironic,
so many questions.
The thing that was ironic is that room was always very dark, and it had that fireplace in it. And I've got witnesses that would sign affidavits in the court of law because they either saw the things themselves or had experiences with them. My son had a friend over, and they were down in that area again playing video games. It was his friend named Justin, and Austin left to get something. Just touched me. Austin left to go upstairs to get a snack, and left Justin down there by himself. And Justin said that when Austin left the room, that this light came at him and hit him in the chest so hard that it laid him back, that his head, he could actually see up into the chimney of the fireplace, and that there was this triangular thing hovering over him, and he couldn't move anything but his eyeballs. He said, and then all of a sudden my son starts to come back down to the bottom of the stairs to go back into the room, and whatever it was immediately released him. You do not have permission to touch me. Do not touch me. Do not touch me. Anyway, so...
Oh, crap. There goes one right in front of the screen.
Yeah, that was the one that was touching me. You do not have permission to touch me. You need to leave right now, or I'm going to send you so much love that you are not going to know what to do with it. Love, 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 joy and happiness, all good things.
So for those of you who are listening later on iTunes or Spotify, and you guys remember, you can always find our audio podcasts there. There was literally just something that came right across the screen between the camera and Lynn while she's talking about you don't have permission to touch me. And it looked like it left. I mean, this is some of the most active stuff we've ever had on our show before.
This is the most active stuff we've ever had on our show before.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be clearing my house tonight.
Now I feel like
doing
something just touched me on the back of the neck.
I would not be surprised because I'm not trying to bring goodies to you, but whenever I do talk, they do come close because they're curious. So, but I'm not afraid of them, and that creates a situation where they can't feed off Lush, and that doesn't enable them to do more physical acts when it comes to me because I stay neutral. And like I said, I love, 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 love you. And it is repellent for them. They will definitely leave the room like there's a stench if you've got love and that sort of thing. But yeah, but there are so many more things, elementals and fae. I have seen aliens in a patient's room before, and that's how I got on Linda Moulton Howell's show, because I was talking about a patient that kept having visitations of aliens that would come to her room, and they would stand behind her and pull things out and plug them in like an old time. Yeah, calling Bob to come in and help me. That's right, Bob, come in and clean up, send your fae in, bring the elementals, bring this. Yep.
This is so weird because I just recently purchased a huge box set of Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I remember that show from the 90s. A friend of mine. One. Yeah. Wow, this is weird. And Bob was the bad guy in Twin Peaks. It was Mike looking for Bob. Bob was a psychopathic, like a demon that was from the other realm, and he would inhabit people and make them kill. If you open the door for him to get in, there had to be something that you would agree to let him in, and would take over. So now I'm seeing, all these synchronicities are because me and Nathaniel Gillis were talking about this earlier today. And by the way, we do have Nathaniel coming back on May 4th. So woo-hoo. Yeah, he's going to be on. We're going to talk about Twin Peaks and this stuff. So
he's absolutely amazing. I admire him so much in all of his work. Brian is great too. Yeah, Bob is a wonderful entity. That's true.
That's good.
We'll have to go into that story as well. You might even want me on for 3 shows because there's so much more.
We're going to have to plan that because, we're going to have to write a huge list of stuff.
Yeah, well, and as you can see, there's activity in my house. So it's not something, it's the real deal. So, you can't.
Well, do you have attachments? Is it you? Is it your house? Is it the area? What's going on?
No. Well, when you talk about them, it draws them to you, and they know that I see them. So they come around sometimes, but they are not in my house. They're not allowed to be here. I blast them out. There is an elderly lady that wanders the hallways sometimes here, but she used to live here and she died in the house, and she has crossed over. She just comes back to visit. Something just whispered in my ear. Okay, people, I need to do some clearing real quick here and get my little salt bath going on. So and definitely we will make a date to do this again.
Absolutely.
And, so that would be
because the activity is picking up, and people, I'm telling you, if you're listening to this, get on the YouTube. You guys can see this for yourself. What's going on?
I see Wayne doing YouTube shorts now, trying to catch them.
Yeah.
So that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay. Well, and they still are, but they're kind of coming and going, and some are the fae coming in here because I've called for them to come in, which is Bob's team. That they come in, the Sentinels, the Undines, the Druids, some very beautiful spirits that are around me often and protect me. I told you the story about Bob, and Brian Bowden has actually seen him and met him. And also, as I had mentioned to you, was the remote viewer that helped with my house. And also Jim Rupert was another one also. And they were in different states. Brian was in Florida. Jim was in South Carolina. The house is in Louisiana. So, but Bob has turned out to be a wonderful asset. So some of the things that you see may very well be them because they will come in and clean up house. That is for sure. So,
well, with the storms coming in towards you, do you think they're maybe gathering some extra energy from that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we're like, oh yeah, I see them. Yeah, they are here. As a matter of fact, I feel one touching my leg. Yeah, no, this is a good thing. These are good things. So, yes, because our bodies are electric and water, and then we have these meat suits that cover everything and bones so that we can move. But we really are made up of electric and water, so everything is energy. So yes, absolutely. From the atmosphere, it amps it up for sure. And like you said, I mean, I've got that storm moving in here as we speak. Before we went on, it was still kind of light outside, but yet it was very, very dark because of the cloud cover. And so, yeah.
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 Well, if you need to go and take care of things, that's completely fine. We're going to definitely get you back on here.
Okay. Well, it's been an hour and a half. I mean, I can finish up some of the stuff because they've actually cleared the room.
Yeah.
So
If you want to finish,
things.
feel free. But if you feel you need to leave or your storm starts coming in, just let us know.
Do you want me to talk about? Oh yeah, the lady with the aliens. She was a patient of mine in one of the rooms that was down at the end of the hallway. And the thing is she had eyes like a wild-eyed rabbit, and she was very, very funny. And one thing that I've noticed about these hybrids, she was a hybrid. They usually don't have children a lot of times. So in my experience, she had been my patient for a while. I knew her well. She loved her sense of humor. But there were times that I would go down to her room, and there would be these beings standing in her room behind her, literally pulling things out and plugging them back in like those old time telephone operators with the boards. You know, they sit there with their cigarette, the party lines.
Yeah. Yep.
And they would be doing that to her. And the thing was, I saw them on multiple occasions, only in her room. They were the same beings, and they didn't realize that I could see them because they were manipulating the veils. It was as if they were standing behind the veil, but yet they were on the opposite side of this woman's bed. The first time that I saw them, 3 of them came in. They were the exact same height. They had in a light colored suit, but the thing that was weird, it was like they had a pillowcase on their head because it was squared off with a flap, and their face was covered as if they were looking through the material, or they were like a drone kind, not drone, but something being manipulated from somewhere else, if that makes sense, like robotic kind of thing. So the first time that I walked into her room with that, she had called for her sleeping pill. She was a late sleeper. Everybody else was in bed by like 7:30. And I was about 10:30 at night, and I took her medicine down, and she's laying on her side, and she's watching me, come into the room, and I'm just acting like I'm not seeing anything, So I did see them at that time. There was a couple of other times that they came in that they appeared like that, but there was one time that 5 of them came in, and one of them was much taller than all of the rest, but they still had that same blocked off head kind of thing. And somebody's texting me about orbs that they saw there. Anyway,
it's real. I mean, it's happening.
Yeah. So when I went into her, what I had to do with her is I had to take in a manual blood pressure cuff when I would go into her room because she was taking cardiac meds, and I had to check her blood pressure and her pulse before giving her cardiac meds. And whenever I would take a fully charged blood pressure cuff, one of the electronic ones, or an electronic thermometer, or the pulse ox for her finger, they would almost immediately drain. They would go from 0, the batteries would just die. And I mean, I even would, call out for them to bring me a second one. And again, that would die. My phone battery would die. Everything, would die. So I'm like hollering out in the hallway. So I learned whenever I went into her room to take the manual cuff. And that way, when those things were in there. But there was one night in particular that there was the taller one that was in there. And I'm standing at her bedside. And all of a sudden, the tall one literally walks around the bed and walks right through me to her head. And I was like where her waist was. And I even said, I said, oh, excuse me, or, oh, pardon me, or something like that. Just automatically, you bump into somebody, you say, excuse me, or you say, you're sorry. And you kind of just do it automatically.
Sure.
And the lady's like, oh, well, no, I'm okay. You didn't do anything wrong. And I, of course, couldn't say that this thing just walked through me, and my teeth were on fire. I mean, it was again, a feeling that you cannot describe in human words. It was it was just this vibratory thing, but something with the energy, my teeth are sensitive, and it just made them feel really, really hot. But it was so quick, that they just went through, and then they were.
And it didn't react to you at all?
No, they didn't realize that I could see them. So they didn't care. They were just pulling their things out and plugging them back in. And I remember I asked about hybrids. Now, when the lady finally passed away, multiple patients came into that room and those things never returned. I never saw them in there because that was my hallway that I had. It was just that lady, something about that lady that they were around. And I suspect because her eyes were so unusually large, that she was some kind of a hybrid here. So I had asked Linda Moulton Howell about it, and she had put me on her show to talk about my experience with that. And I mean, and I've seen aliens since then too, and they do manipulate behind the veils. Bob is an interesting story in itself, and I can tell you that a little bit, and then I can go into it deeper in another show. I had inherited a house. I inherited my sister's house, and prior to her death, there were issues in the house, but she thought that it was a haunting. So she was doing everything that she could to try to protect herself from a haunting. So when she finally passed away, my son and I were at the house, and we went through the house to clear it. And when I
just touched my head,
I would not be, I just saw something move past you, actually. Yeah. When you rewatch this, yeah, he moved that. Well, no, it would be that it would be you're right. You're right. It went to your, what hand is that? You're right. That way. He went that way. That
way toward Michelle.
Yeah.
Michelle's over here because it's reversed.
Yeah.
So Michelle's right there. Great.
Yeah. So
something touched my head.
So anyway, my son and I, we went through the house. I use a fire component when I'm clearing houses because I give them an opportunity to leave. I crack a door and I tell them, you can either leave on your own or I'm going to help you leave. And the fire sucks in the sucks in the oxygen. So they get sucked into the pan and they get stuck in the bottom sticky. And then I rinse out the pan, like in a river that runs away or, with water or whatever type thing to get rid of that. So we did that. And yeah, we picked up a few things, in the house and a lot of the energy. My sister had been sick for a while and a lot of the dark speckles were in there from that. But after we finished, we were standing upstairs in the hallway and my son is standing in the master bedroom doorway. I'm standing in the hallway bathroom door and we're just leaning against, we're talking. And all of a sudden out of the third bedroom, we see this little thing come walking out of the bedroom, passes by me, goes past my son and enters into the master bedroom. And I remember seeing it and thinking, that looks just like one of those bankers on Harry Potter. Blocky head, little ears that kind of came up, the big nose. He had on clothes also, a little garment.
The goblins, right?
Well, yeah, like that. And so my son said to me, he said, did you just see Hogwarts go by? And I thought it was funny because I didn't say anything. I'm thinking this and then he says it. And I said, yes. And all of a sudden it comes back out, passes by him, passes by me, goes back into the third bedroom, and then comes out one more time and does the same thing. Only this time he left a misting of a portal in the hallway where these wreath of faces that another relative 3 days earlier who was sleeping in my sister's room woke up and saw hovering over the bed. And I kept hearing her singing hymns and praying for like an hour and a half. And I thought, geez, that's an awfully strange ritual to do before bedtime, for that long. She must have insomnia. And then she told me what she saw. And that came together with what then I saw in the hallway. So it turns out that she has a fae in the house. And there's so much more to that. His name for me was fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And you can ask Brian because Brian witnessed that. He's on here. He entered, he came and he did remote viewing into the house. And he's like, yeah, he's sitting on the stairs. He's going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, and bitch. And I could hear, wow. I could hear too. And so anyway, there's a whole story to it that it ends up being something very beautiful. And Bob is this charming being and he brings a lot of very, very beautiful things in that way as well. That is a whole show in itself. But that's what I'm saying about things that are living on this earth, paralleling us, that because their vibration is higher, they can't see. And the sad part is that, and he told me about Bigfoot too. I asked Bob about Bigfoot. He told me what he was. But the thing about it is that Christianity has demonetized fae and elementals so much because, again, it's something that you can't physically touch. Stop touching my head. Who is that? I don't feel like it's something bad. They're kind of playing with my hair. They tie my hair. When I first met Bob, he was tying my hair in knots while I was sleeping, but he doesn't do that anymore. So where was I? What was I saying?
About Christianity.
Oh yes, demonetizing them. You know, the truth of the matter is that they have joy and they have happiness and they have the ability to love and they grieve loss. They grieve loss. They have all of the same emotions that we do. And demons can't experience love and happiness and joy. So how can they be that if they're able to experience that? And they come with this beautiful childlike wonder. I mean, just their hearts are so open and they're curious. And when they trust you, they're almost comical. And the energy that they bring into the room, again, there are not words that can on this earth that can describe it. There's not a feeling that can touch it. It just, when you're in it, you're in it and you're experiencing it, but you can't describe it that way, you know? So, and again, there's a whole
Damn it,
story.
something just hit me again. Right on the top of my head.
I'm sorry.
Michelle's getting freaked out over here. I can tell. Something
That's
just
okay.
went like tapped my head. This is crazy.
Well, I'm sorry, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. Usually when I talk about the good things like Bob and stuff, they don't really come around. The Fae do though, and they're special. Yeah, I remember I had mentioned to you before the show. I had gone to the Gettysburg Bash, and Brian was familiar with Bob, and Bob was riding in my back seat, and he would always sit because his legs were short, so they didn't hang over the seat very well. So he'd sit there and he'd shift his feet back and forth like windshield wipers in the back seat. And he'd just sit there humming to himself or whatever. And I'd see him in the back seat. And when I was at the Gettysburg, I had two different psychic ladies come up to me and they say, "You have a little boy following you around." Well, of course, they don't want to mention that it's an ugly little boy. You know what I'm saying? So and he exudes this masculine energy. But then when Brian came over, Bob was actually sitting in the chair against the wall, and he's sitting there and his feet are going back and forth. And as Brian pointed out, he says, "Yeah, he's sitting right there and he's got this shit-eating grin on his face and his feet are, wiggling." And he was right. And Bob was sitting right there. And so Brian actually got to see Bob up close and personal. But there's a whole thing that goes with it. And I'm writing a new book called Omnipresent, No Place Like Home, connecting the humans with the Fey realms. Because of this time with the frequencies that are elevating, we're going to start seeing them more. They were created by God. They do talk about the creator. Let's see, fill in your name, breaking. Okay, yeah. He's Brian is sending me some stuff.
Yeah,
too.
he sent us something for protection that he wanted us to do.
Yeah, and I'm going to do the same thing too because Brian, I had as Nathaniel knows, there's some weirdo lady that may even be watching this that's been doing some dark arts in my direction. So anyway, I reached out actually recently to Nathaniel, who's helping me with that as well. But yeah, there's some beautiful things with I've had more than Jim Rupert and his wife came out to the house, and Jim actually saw Bob as well. When Bob was being naughty and peeking into the house, we had to negotiate to keep him out of the house because the thing about elementals is they don't leave. You can do whatever you want. They don't leave. Religion doesn't affect them in any way because they were created when the earth was created and they were here before religion. And what he said about Bigfoot, because I asked him about Bigfoot. I asked, is Bigfoot an alien? And he said, no. He said, Bigfoot is an interdimensional being that manipulates the veils and can elevate his frequency just through thought so that he can actually make himself invisible by elevating that frequency. So he could be standing right next to you. He said that he travels galactically throughout everywhere and he's on multiple planets, not just ours, but that he's not an alien and he's not a derivative of a human either. He's in a category of his own, is what he said. So, and he also talks about Jesus. Anyway, there's just a whole bunch. He talks about when Jesus was put on the cross, that the nails did not go through his hands; it went through his wrist.
The wrist.
Through the wrist.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, because if you put it through somebody's hand, it's going to just tear right through. It can't support the body.
Yeah, that was something that he said, and he said that that Jesus was about 5'11", that he was Middle Eastern looking in skin color, that his hair is a brown, but there's a little bit more of a red tint to it, and that the way that it's luminescent, that the light comes off of it. He said that something very unique about Jesus is that his eyes change from a beautiful warm brown to a sapphire blue, depending on I guess, I don't know what he's talking about, or if he's, thinking, that they change from the brown to the blue, and that they're beautiful. Now my phone's ringing. It's probably my bill trying to reach me. So anyway, so
all right. Well, we're definitely going to get you back on here, everybody. It's Lynn Monet. I got the in the show description, her website link. It's LYNNMONET.com.
Yes,
go ahead.
And if you get a chance, WJBF Channel 6, I just did a segment on the news about the book Colors of Heaven, and it's streaming on Channel 6.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Lynn, for joining us. We're going to set up at least another 2 shows that we got to get you on.
At least,
because this is amazing stuff, and definitely need to talk to you more. So
thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure. And to the group, I didn't see the chat, but I'm sending you all love and light. And I promise that I won't let any oogie boogies come home with you or to your house. So I'll take care of them here.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Lynn. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Good night.
Bye, Lynn.
Okay.
Okay. For those of you in chat, if anyone has just stop, Wayne. If anyone has a particular source or website that they order their dragon's blood from, could you please email the show at mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com? I was looking at a couple sites because, I say that I'm going to burn sage. If all that does is just poke fun, I would like to get some dragon's blood to burn in this place, especially with this one over here with orbs.
I am not kidding. I'm reacting to some of this stuff with giggles, because sometimes I get like the nervous giggles when it comes to stuff like this. This is not like what our guest from last week was saying, where it's like, just punch him in the dick. Right? Remember? Was it Alex? Or no, that was David. Right, the paranormal guy, the Masons, and I don't think you're going to be doing that. There's nothing here to punch, and I'm feeling a touch, and then a touch, a couple taps. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? And then seeing all the orbs and stuff flying around behind Lynn. I mean, dude, this is part. Wild episode. Can't wait for 2, 3, and 4.
Protected before watching these shows.
Yeah, that's true.
We're going to get some dragon's blood because we're all in it on this one.
Yeah. So, all right. So, with that being said, I mean, shoot, we should probably get out of here and see what Brian has to say. And what does he say here? Do you want to wrap yourself in a white
golden bubble of protection from God?
Protection from God, yeah.
For help and protection.
Oh, okay. So you also want to see the Holy Saint Michael prayer. Probably say the Holy Saint
Brian
Michael
sent
prayer.
us everything.
Okay, he sent us all that stuff. Okay. All right. Wow. Okay, so next week we're talking near-death experiences. So things are getting weird. Can I just have my UFOs back?
I was the one who brought up having the paranormal portion, so I'm sure that Wayne's going to get off the live and blame me for this one.
Yeah, this is all your fault.
Oh,
all right. Well, with that being said, everybody that has been watching, thank you very much. We truly appreciate you.
Kelly, do you guys ever do happy shows?
Well,
You do remember what our profession is, right?
Right. Yeah. You want to talk about orbs and demonic attachment? We are teachers, so you know. So all right. With that being said,
night sleeping. Thank you, everyone, for joining tonight.
Yes, thank you, everybody. It's been a wild show. Not expecting this, but just want to say thank you, everybody. I don't know. Keep your eyes to the sky, or get some crystals, some sage, some dragon's
blood.
Yeah.
Salt bath.
All right. Anyways, everybody have a great night. Michelle?
Have a great night, everyone.
And keep sleep tight and keep your eyes to that
sky and dark rooms.
Yeah, let's get out of here.